Throughout history, numerous leaders have left indelible marks on their nations and the world. While some are celebrated for their achievements, others are remembered for actions that led to controversy, suffering, and profound consequences. This exploration delves into the complex legacies of 8 such leaders, examining the darker chapters of their rule. 1. King Leopold II and the exploitation of the Congo. King Leopold II of Belgium's reign over the Congo Free State, 1885 to 1908, is a harrowing example of colonial greed masquerading as humanitarianism. Presenting himself as a benevolent ruler committed to ending slavery and spreading Christianity, Leopold exploited the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 to claim personal ownership of the Congo, a territory 76 times larger than Belgium. His regime imposed a merciless system of resource extraction, primarily targeting rubber and ivory. Indigenous Congolese were subjected to forced labor, with quotas enforced through terror. Villages that failed to meet rubber collection targets faced mass killings, mutilations, including severed hands as proof of bullets used, and the burning of homes. The forced public, Leopold's private militia, became infamous for its brutality. By the early 20th century, international figures like Roger Casement and activists like E. Morel exposed these atrocities, leading to global outrage. Estimates suggest that up to 10 million Congolese, half the population, perished due to violence, starvation, and disease. Belgium annexed the Congo in 1908, but Leopold's legacy of exploitation left the region impoverished, politically fractured, and socially traumatized. The scars of this era persist in modern Congo's struggles with governance and resource conflicts, underscoring how colonial violence shaped Africa's post-colonial trajectory. 2. Joseph Stalin's reign of terror. Joseph Stalin's rule over the Soviet Union, 1924 to 1953, transformed the nation into an industrial superpower, but at a catastrophic human cost. His policies of forced collectivization, which dismantled private farms into state-controlled communes, triggered the Holodomor, 1932 to 1933, a man-made famine that killed millions of Ukrainians. Simultaneously, Stalin's Great Purge, 1936 to 1938, targeted perceived political rivals, intellectuals, military leaders, and ordinary citizens in a campaign of paranoia. Over 1 million people were executed, and millions more were imprisoned in gulags, where forced labor and harsh conditions led to widespread deaths. The NKVD, Stalin's secret police, orchestrated show trials to eliminate figures like Leon Trotsky and Nikolai Bukharin, while propaganda glorified Stalin as an infallible leader. Despite leading the USSR to victory in World War II, Stalin's post-war policies intensified repression, including deportations of ethnic minorities like the Crimean Tatars. His cult of personality and totalitarian governance stifled dissent for decades, leaving a legacy of fear that lingered long after his death. The Soviet Union's eventual collapse in 1991 revealed the unsustainable brutality of Stalin's regime, yet his impact on Russia's political culture, centralized power, and distrust of dissent remains evident today. 3. Adolf Hitler and the Holocaust. Adolf Hitler's dictatorship, 1933 to 1945, epitomized the dangers of fascist ideology and racial extremism. Exploiting Germany's post-World War I economic despair and nationalist resentment, Hitler rose to power through propaganda and intimidation, dismantling democracy via the Enabling Act of 1933. His regime institutionalized anti-Semitism through the Nuremberg Laws, 1935, stripping Jews of citizenship and rights. The Holocaust, systematized at the 1942 Wannsee Conference, saw the establishment of death camps like Auschwitz and Treblinka, where millions were murdered in gas chambers. Hitler's expansionist ambitions ignited World War II, leading to the invasion of Poland in 1939 and subsequent global conflict that claimed over 70 million lives. Beyond Jews, the Nazis targeted Romani people, disabled individuals, LGBTQ+ communities, and political dissidents. The regime's collapse in 1945 revealed the full horror of the Holocaust, prompting post-war trials like Nuremberg and a global reckoning with genocide prevention. Hitler's legacy is a chilling reminder of how demagoguery, scapegoating, and unchecked authoritarianism can lead to unparalleled destruction. 4. Pol Pot and the Cambodian Genocide.
Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge regime, 1975 to 1979, sought to create a classless agrarian society by erasing modernity and intellectualism. Upon seizing power, he ordered the forced evacuation of cities, labeling urban dwellers as enemies of the revolution. Millions were marched to rural labor camps, where executions, starvation, and disease became widespread. The regime targeted professionals, teachers, and even those wearing glasses, symbols of education, for execution. Tulle Sling Prison, S-21, became a site of torture and death, with over 17,000 victims documented. By 1979, Vietnamese forces ousted the Khmer Rouge, but Cambodia had lost a quarter of its population. Survivors faced lasting trauma, while landmines and social fragmentation hindered recovery. Pol Pot's utopian delusion exemplifies how radical ideology, divorced from human empathy, can lead to societal collapse. The extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia later prosecuted surviving leaders, but justice remains incomplete for many victims. 5. Saddam Hussein's authoritarian rule. Saddam Hussein's dictatorship, 1979 to 2003, combined ruthless repression with regional aggression. His Sunni-dominated Ba'ath Party marginalized Shia and Kurdish populations, exemplified by the 1988 Anfal campaign, which included chemical attacks on Halabja, killing thousands. The Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988, driven by territorial disputes, cost over 1 million lives and devastated both economies. Saddam's 1990 invasion of Kuwait triggered Gulf War sanctions that crippled Iraq, leading to widespread poverty. Domestically, his Mukhabarat, intelligence agencies, silenced dissent through torture and executions. The 2003 invasion toppled Saddam but unleashed sectarian violence, revealing the fragility of Iraq's state structure. His trial and execution in 2006 symbolized accountability, yet his legacy of division and violence continues to shape Iraq's instability. 6. Muammar Gaddafi's dictatorship in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi's 42-year rule, 1969 to 2011, blended eccentric ideology with authoritarianism. His Third International Theory, outlined in the Green Book, rejected capitalism and communism, but devolved into a personality cult. Gaddafi sponsored global terrorism, including the 1988 Lockerbie bombing, leading to international isolation. Domestically, he suppressed dissent through arbitrary arrests and state-sponsored violence, while relying on tribal alliances to maintain power. The 2011 Arab Spring uprising, met with brutal force, prompted NATO intervention and his gruesome overthrow. Libya's descent into chaos post-Gaddafi, marked by civil war and militia rule, underscores the dangers of centralized autocracy and the challenges of rebuilding fractured states. 7. Kim Il-sung's totalitarian regime in North Korea. Kim Il-sung's establishment of North Korea, 1948 to 1994, created a hermit kingdom defined by juche, self-reliance, ideology, and totalitarian control. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, initiated by his invasion of the South, ended in stalemate but entrenched Kim's militarized rule. His cult of personality, enforced through propaganda and re-education camps, portrayed him as a divine figure. Economic mismanagement and isolation led to famine in the 1990s, killing millions. The regime's nuclear ambitions and human rights abuses, including prison camps holding 200,000 prisoners, sustained global condemnation. Kim's dynasty, continued by his son and grandson, exemplifies how totalitarianism can endure through indoctrination and fear, isolating a nation from the modern world. 8. Vladimir Putin's authoritarianism and international aggression. Vladimir Putin's leadership, 1999-present, has reshaped Russia into an authoritarian state with global influence, consolidating power through constitutional amendments and suppressing opposition. Exemplified by the poisoning of Alexei Navalny, Putin controls media and elections. Internationally, his annexation of Crimea, 2014, and support for separatists in Ukraine challenged post-Cold War borders. Cyber attacks, election interference, and disinformation campaigns destabilize Western democracies,
while alliances with Syria's Assad and Wagner Group mercenaries extend Russian influence. Domestically, anti-LGBTQ+ laws and nationalist rhetoric bolster his image as a strongman. Critics argue Putin's regime perpetuates corruption and stagnation, risking long-term instability. His actions signal a rejection of liberal democracy, fostering a new era of global authoritarianism. The annals of history are filled with leaders whose actions have shaped the world in profound ways. While their achievements are often celebrated, it is imperative to also confront and understand their darkest chapters. Only by acknowledging the full spectrum of their legacies can we glean lessons to guide future generations.